The mind is not a wild river that must be forced into silence. It is a quiet pool that has simply been stirred by the winds of the day. True peace does not come from trying to suppress the thought, but in letting the thought dissolve back into the great space from which it arose. We do not seek stillness. We return to the stillness that has always been waiting. Welcome to the Lotus Whisper. Tonight we begin a long journey inward, guided by the timeless wisdom of the Zen masters. This is not a study or a lesson, but a slow descent into deep rest. We will explore the simple, profound truths embedded in ancient stories and the stark power of the koan, those moments of penetrating insight that cut through the illusion of complexity. Let the stories be the gentle hand that guides your attention away from the tension of the day. There is nothing to achieve here, nothing to solve, and no wisdom you must grasp. Simply listen as your breathing slows, as your body softens, and as your own deep wisdom begins to emerge. Let the quiet truth of each word draw you deeper into the spaciousness that lives beneath all your thoughts, guiding you toward a profound and restorative sleep. We hope this journey helps you find a deeper sense of peace and tranquility. If you find comfort in these whispers, please consider subscribing to the channel so you can join us for many more nights of deep rest and contemplation. The path of the wobbly brick. The air in the mountain monastery was thin and cold, carrying the sharp scent of pine needles and damp earth. For a new monk named Jiro, the physical rigors of Zen practice were less challenging than the mental ones. He could endure the long hours of sitting meditation, the zazen, until his knees ached and his spine stiffened. He could handle the frugal meals of rice and vegetables, but the walking meditation, the kinhin, unsettled him. The path for the kinhin had been laid centuries ago, a winding stone walkway built from thousands of uneven, mismatched bricks donated by farmers and merchants over the generations. Time, weather, and the continuous passage of sandaled feet, a complaint. This path is flawed. Why don't they fix these bricks? How can I practice mindfulness when I have to worry about my footing? One evening after the kinhin was complete and the sunset had turned the western sky to soft lavender and gold, Jiro approached Kenshin in the quiet hall. "Master Kenshin," Jiro said, keeping his voice respectful but letting the frustration color his tone. "I find the path of the walking meditation to be a continuous distraction. I am constantly on guard for the wobbly bricks. It feels like an interruption to the practice of pure presence." Kenshin smiled, a slow, deep warmth spreading across his aged face, wrinkling the corners of his eyes. He did not dismiss Jiro's frustration, but instead turned it over gently, like a smooth river stone. "Tell me, Jiro," the master asked softly, his voice barely disturbing the silence of the hall. "When you step on a firm brick, what do you do?" Jiro paused, considering the simplicity of the question. "I keep walking, master. I trust the ground and continue my meditation." "And when you step on a brick that is loose, a wobbly brick, what do you do then?" "I tense up. I quickly shift my weight and move to the next one, feeling the irritation that the kinhin has been spoiled by that moment of imbalance." Kenshin took a breath, allowing the vast silence of the monastery to fill the space between them. "Do you see, Jiro? The bricks are simply bricks. They are neither good nor bad. They are merely firm or loose. They are fixed, or they are wobbly." He leaned closer, his eyes holding a gentle but penetrating depth. "The problem is not the wobbly brick. The problem is your expectation that the path should be entirely firm. The problem is your resistance to the reality of the wobble." Jiro stood still, the master's words sinking into him, not as argument, but as a physical sensation, a sudden relaxation of his tense shoulders. Kenshin continued, his voice taking on the quality of a quiet, flowing stream. Life, Jiro, is the walking path. The firm bricks are the moments of ease, the periods of health, the conversations that bring comfort, the successful completion. Observe. Ah, this brick wobbles. You shift your weight with a natural, flowing grace, accepting the reality of the moment. You do not carry the memory of the wobble to the next step, nor do you anticipate the next one. You simply feel the wobble, reestablish balance, and continue. The irritation vanishes because the resistance is gone. Jiro realized that he had spent his entire walking meditation fighting an object that was merely behaving according to its nature, the nature of a loose brick. He had been so focused on how the path should be that he had missed the profound teaching of how the path is. This teaching is the core of impermanence, anicca. Nothing stays the same. The very ground we stand on, physically, emotionally, mentally, is constantly shifting. The brick that was firm yesterday may be loose today. The opinion you held this morning may shift by afternoon. The body you inhabit will change moment by moment. Zen teaches us that our deepest suffering comes not from this constant change, but from our frantic, exhausting effort to make the changing permanent. We want the firm brick to stay firm. We want the happy moment to last forever. We want the painful feeling to be fixed and solved. This grasping after permanence on a path built of impermanence is the root of tension and anxiety. Consider this moment now. You are settling into sleep. The mind may be presenting you with wobbly bricks, a memory that is loose and irritating, a worry about a future event that is unstable and uncertain. Notice how the moment you resist these thoughts, they become firmer, more persistent. You try to force them to be firm, quiet, and solved. But if you simply observe the thought, this thought wobbles, this worry is loose. If you accept its instability without resistance, the energy you are feeding it drains away. It simply tips. You gently rebalance your attention to your breath, and you continue on the path of rest. There is no need to fix it. There is no need to complain about it. It is just the reality of the moment. The true practice is not the attempt to find a perfect, unchanging path, but the mastery of walking with unwavering presence on the path that is. It is the vegetable garden, his mind as clear and simple as the mountain stream that ran past his modest hut. He had often taught that true security is never found in what we accumulate, but in what we are willing to release. He lived this truth entirely. His dwelling contained little more than a worn rush mat for sleeping, a simple bowl for eating, and the robes on his back. His possessions, like his thoughts, were few and simple. On this particular night, Shichiri was sitting in zazen, his seated meditation, when a sound, sharp and out of place, sliced through the perfect silence. It was the sound of a window being pried open, followed by the soft, cautious scrape of sandals on the wooden floor. A thief had entered the temple. The man, a young wanderer driven by desperation and hunger, moved with the anxious tension of one who knows he is doing wrong. He was hoping for a chest of offerings, a hidden box of coins, or perhaps some valuable ceremonial object. He crept from corner to corner, his eyes wide and adapting slowly to the gloom, searching frantically for anything of value. Master Shichiri did not stir. He did not tighten his shoulders or quicken his breath. The profound quiet he carried within him was not merely the absence of noise. It was the active, conscious presence of the moment, and the moment just then included a thief. The thief searched for a long time. He turned over the simple mat. He checked the empty shelves. He even looked inside the rice pot. His frustration grew into a burning heat of anger and disappointment. There was absolutely nothing. He was about to leave, his stomach churning with failure, when he noticed the master sitting perfectly still, his presence almost indistinguishable from the shadows, yet radiating a deep, calm certainty. The thief froze. Shichiri, without opening his eyes, spoke. His voice was not accusatory or fearful, but entirely warm and welcoming, as if greeting a late-arriving guest. "Welcome, friend," the master said, his voice a low, comforting hum. "It is a cold night to be traveling through the mountains. Do not disturb possession." The master picked up the coins and held them out toward the thief. "Please, take this," Shichiri offered. "It is not much, but consider it a small gift, for you must need it more than I do." The thief, still unable to speak, took the coins. His hand trembled, not from fear, but from the sudden unbearable weight of unexpected kindness. He clutched the coins and quickly bowed, a deep, humbled bow of respect and regret, before fleeing back into the night. Shichiri returned to his meditation, his posture unchanged, his mind serene. He had lost his last possession, but he had lost nothing of his peace. A few minutes later, the master sighed softly, though not with sorrow or regret. "Poor fellow," he murmured. "He should have left a few words of thanks. It makes the gift so much more pleasant when you show gratitude." But then, he smiled deeply and closed his eyes once more. He had done what was necessary. This profound story reveals the essence of the Buddha's timeless teaching, the simple truth that can guide us through the turbulence of life and into the harbor of deep, lasting peace. The Buddha taught that in the final analysis, when all the noise and urgency of the world fall away, just three things truly matter: how well we have lived, how well we have loved, how well we have learned to let go. Shichiri, in his encounter with the thief, embodied all three of these ultimate truths in one seamless moment. First, how well we have lived. Living well is often confused with living comfortably, or successfully, or achieving status. But in the language of Zen, to live well is to live fully present, completely awake to the reality of this very moment. It is to be so rooted in one's own inner clarity that no external event can shake you. The thief's intrusion was a moment of crisis, a wobbly brick on the path of quiet practice. Shichiri did not react to the idea of the thief, the fear, the moral outrage, the violation. He simply met the reality of the human being standing before him. He was completely present, not dwelling in the past regret of having no possessions to save, nor anticipating a violent future. He was right here, right compelled to take from others. The master understood that the thief was the one truly impoverished. His gift of the coins was an act of unconditional love. It was not a judgment. It was an offering designed to ease the suffering of the moment. He treated the thief as an honored, though misplaced, guest. He extended human warmth and respect to a person who had utterly failed to respect him. This is the measure of how well we have loved. When we can offer kindness, even when the recipient has given us every reason to withhold it. Consider this as you settle into rest. To love well is to soften the hard edges of your judgment, both of yourself and of others. It is the simple, quiet decision to meet the difficult moments of life with a heart that remains open, rather than one that immediately closes in fear. Finally, how well we have learned to let go. This is, perhaps, the ultimate lesson. Shichiri's response was possible only because he had already surrendered his attachment to his belongings. He had nothing to lose, so he had nothing to fear. The moment the thief appeared, Shichiri already knew the coins were gone. He did not cling to the idea of owning them. He did not cling to the expectation of safety. We are all constantly surrounded by things we fear losing. Our health, our reputation, our financial stability, the love of others, and eventually, our own lives. This clinging, this upadana, is the source of our deep, restless anxiety. We try to grasp and hold on to what is inherently flowing and changing. Shichiri's action was the living embodiment of letting go. He let go of the coins. He let go of his right to justice. He let go of the anger that would have spoiled his sleep. By completely releasing, he found a freedom that no thief could ever steal. Letting go is not a passive resignation. It is an active release of the mental tension we exert trying to control the uncontrollable. It is the realization that true stability resides not in the objects we hold, but in the spaciousness we create by opening our hands and our hearts. As you lie here now, let the thought of these three ultimate matters soothe your mind. You have done enough living for one day. You have done enough loving. Potential. A vast quiet where the deepest truth of human freedom resides. This freedom is the capacity for choice, and it lives in the precise moment between what happens to us and how we respond. The masters teach us that the event, the word, the accident, the disappointment, is the stimulus. Our automatic, often regrettable reaction is the response. The space between these two is the entirety of our spiritual work. It is where peace is lost or won. Imagine a mirror hanging on a quiet wall. When a face approaches the mirror, the image instantly appears. When the face moves away, the image instantly vanishes. This is the nature of the mind untrained. It reflects the world immediately and without a pause. An insult is spoken and the mind instantly reflects anger. A pleasant sight appears and the mind instantly reflects desire. There is no space, only immediate mechanical reaction. The story of the great master Hakuin illustrates the profound power of cultivating this space. Hakuin was renowned throughout Japan for his spiritual purity. He was stern in his discipline, brilliant in his teaching, and his wisdom was considered faultless. Near his temple lived a beautiful young woman whose parents owned a small but prosperous food shop. One day, the parents discovered their daughter was pregnant. They were furious, demanding to know the father. The daughter, terrified and ashamed, finally named Hakuin. The parents, in a state of high shock and outrage, immediately stormed up to Hakuin's temple. They burst into his quiet hall, their faces contorted with anger and betrayal. They accused him loudly, detailing the shame he had brought upon their family, upon his temple, and upon the very teachings of the Buddha. They shouted and demanded reparations, expecting a furious denial, a clever philosophical evasion, or at least some word of defense. Hakuin simply listened. He allowed their words, their volume, and their raw, intense emotion to wash over him without offering any resistance. He did not tighten his jaw. He did not defend his reputation, which was his most cherished possession in the eyes of the world. He did not enter into the story of the accusation. When the parents paused, breathless from their outpouring of rage, Hakuin against. After repeating their accusations one last time to the unmoving silence, they left, defeated, not by argument, but by the quiet immensity of the master's peace. Hakuin's reputation was destroyed. The villagers who had revered him now shunned him. The parents, confirming the master's quiet admission, soon delivered the newborn baby to the temple, demanding that Hakuin take responsibility. Hakuin took the child. He accepted the boy, wrapped him carefully, and quietly set about the task of fatherhood amidst the complete collapse of his public life. He walked through the village with the child, accepting the cold glares and the whispers of scandal. When people offered him gifts for the baby, he accepted them with the same gentle gratitude. When people spat in disgust, he accepted that too, with the same gentle presence. For a year, Hakuin cared for the child, his inner peace undisturbed by the external chaos. He performed his duties as a Zen master, taught the few students who remained, and nurtured the child with unconditional love. He held fast to the space between the stimulus of public scorn and the response of inner turmoil. He refused to let the world steal his quiet heart. Then, the young mother, unable to bear the weight of her secret and seeing the master's peaceful endurance, confessed the truth to her parents. The true father was a young man in the village. The parents, realizing the terrible injustice they had inflicted, rushed back to the temple, tears streaming down their faces, full of shame and overwhelming apology. They begged for his forgiveness, bowed deeply to him, and explained the truth. They asked to take the child back. Hakuin listened to their confession, their anguish, and their apology with the same vast, quiet acceptance he had given their rage a year earlier. When they were finished, he handed the child back to them and spoke the same 3 words, delivered now with the gentleness of rain. Is that so? The story is a powerful teaching on the nature of the pause. The Zen master is the master of the pause. He understands that the moment of greatest vulnerability is also the moment of great pause. It was the simple, non-reactive acceptance of the current reality. It meant, I acknowledge your words are here, in this moment. I do not confirm them. I do not deny them. I do not fight them. I simply observe their presence. This pause is the gift of mindfulness. It allows us to step outside the chain of cause and effect and to see the world as it truly is. A constant flow of change, not a series of personal attacks. The anger of the parents was not about Hakuin. It was about their own fear and shame. He refused to internalize their turmoil, giving it back to them simply by refusing to participate in the conflict. As you settle deeper into rest, consider the moments of your day when you reacted too quickly. Notice the tightness in your body, the quickening of your breath, the rush of adrenaline. All of these are signals that the space, the pause, was lost. Now, tonight, you have the opportunity to reclaim that space. If a worry arises, a stimulus from your past or future, do not immediately jump to the response of anxiety or planning. Instead, take a deep, slow breath. Feel the weight of your body on the bed. Acknowledge the thought with a gentle, inner, is that so? Let the simplicity of that acceptance create a pocket of stillness in your mind. You do not have to solve the problem tonight. You do not have to win the argument that lives only in your memory. You only have to practice the pause. Rest entirely in that space of non-reaction. Let the silence of this space guide you, as it guided Hakuin, to a peace that cannot be stained by accusation, and a freedom that cannot be stolen by the world's judgment. The space is always there, waiting for you to simply stop the rush and breathe into it. Rest in that gentle, expansive freedom. Part 4. The Sound of One Hand. The history of Zen is marked by moments of impossible clarity, moments captured in the succinct, penetrating thought He tried to reason it out. If sound requires vibration, and one hand cannot create opposing surfaces, then the sound must be silence. He confidently presented this answer to Hakuin. The master listened patiently, then gently shook his head. You hear the sound of silence, Tenzan. That is a fine thing, but that is not the sound of one hand. Tenzan returned to his meditation mat, slightly chastened but undeterred. He tried a philosophical approach. Since the hand is empty of inherent existence, shunyata, the sound must be the concept of sound itself, existing only in the mind of the hearer. He brought this idea, complex and well-argued, to his master. Hakuin tapped his simple staff once on the floor. You hear the sound of thought, Tenzan. That is a subtle thing, but that is not the sound of one hand. The monk was becoming desperate. He tried poetry. He tried metaphor. He tried to describe the sound as the wind passing through the pine trees, or the quiet drip of water in the courtyard. Each answer was met with the same quiet, firm refusal. That is the sound of the wind. That is the sound of water. That is not the sound of one hand. Weeks turned into months. The riddle became an obsession, a knot that tightened in his chest. Tenzan could no longer read, for the words swam on the page, reminding him of the sound. He could no longer enjoy his simple meals, for his mind was consumed by the pursuit. His sharp, brilliant intellect, his proudest possession, had failed him utterly. The question had become a personal torment. He became moody, irritable, and physically exhausted. The entire world seemed to mock him with its dualities. He saw the two hands everywhere, light and shadow, coming and going, life and death, self and other. He knew logically that the truth must exist beyond this duality, but he could not find it. One cold afternoon, Tenzan was sweeping the temple courtyard, his movements usually precise and orderly, but now clumsy with mental strain. He began to weep, tears of pure frustration and exhaustion. He stopped sweeping, dropping the bamboo broom with a clatter. He looked up at the vast, empty sky, and the total absurdity of the situation struck. Two hands meet, the original vibration that exists prior to the division of cause and effect. It was the sound of the world before the mind separates things into dualities. It was the sound of suchness, the fundamental reality of all things, pure and undivided. He ran instantly to the master's door and cried out with a voice that was both laughing and weeping, a voice free of intellectual strain. Master, I have heard it. It is the sound of the entire mountain before the wind begins to move. Hakuin simply opened the door, looked at the monk with recognition, and smiled. He spoke only one word. Now, go back and sleep. The master knew that Tenzan had finally dropped the clinging to the intellect. The question, what is the sound of one hand, is a teaching about the true nature of listening. We spend our lives listening only with our ears and our minds, hearing the world filtered through our preferences, biases, and definitions. We hear the two hands clapping, the duality of life, good, bad, pleasant, unpleasant, gain, loss. We hear the reaction, never the source. To hear the sound of one hand is to hear with the entirety of your being, with your skin, your bones, and the deepest chamber of your heart. It is to hear the world before the mind names it, categorizes it, or judges it. The mind is the great separator. It takes the seamless flow of reality and cuts it into pieces. It takes the continuous stream of light and says, this is sunrise, this is my worry, this is my task. The sound of one hand is the unseparated reality, the unified whole, from which all distinctions arise and into which all distinctions dissolve. It is the sound of emptiness, shunyata, not as a void, but as a boundless, all-encompassing potential. When you grasp this, you realize that the sound of one hand is the sound of your own original nature. It is the profound silence that is never empty, the complete, unmoving suchness that is always present, whether the hands are clapping or still. And spices, and his home was a museum of rare artifacts. Yet Kenji was known to all as a deeply unhappy man. His mind was a perpetual ledger, constantly calculating gain and loss, always anticipating the next threat to his fortune. He slept poorly, tormented by the fear of losing what he possessed. One spring morning, he traveled far into the northern hills to visit an ancient Zen master named Ryokan, seeking a teaching that might ease his anxiety. Ryokan lived a life of such complete, radical simplicity that it was almost invisible. He inhabited a small thatched hut, barely big enough for one person, and his only possession of note was a single, smooth, wooden begging bowl. He did not seek disciples or fame, preferring the company of the wind, the moon, and the small children of the nearby village. When Kenji arrived, dressed in fine silks and laden with gifts of precious tea and money, Ryokan met him with a quiet smile. The master accepted the gifts, not with eagerness, but with a gentle indifference, placing the silks on the floor and the money on a rock outside the hut. "Master Ryokan," Kenji began, bowing low, his voice tight with worry. "I have everything the world can offer, yet I have nothing resembling peace. My wealth is a heavy burden, a constant source of fear. How does one achieve the tranquility you possess when the demands of life are so vast?" Ryokan looked at the merchant's tense face, seeing not a powerful man, but a man imprisoned by his own accumulation. "Tell me, Kenji," Ryokan said softly, "when you drink from a beautiful, perfectly formed clay cup and you set it down, do you worry that it might break?" "Of course, master," Kenji replied immediately. "It is a fine piece of work. If it falls, it is lost forever." "And when you drink from your bowl," Ryokan continued, pointing to his simple wooden begging bowl resting by the door, "do you worry that it might break?" Kenji looked at the bowl. It was utterly plain, worn smooth by countless journeys and washings. "No, master, it is just wood. It has no value. If it breaks, it can be easily replaced, or perhaps simply tied back together." Ryokan nodded himself. He had no attachment to its contents, its form, or its existence. He was truly free because he possessed nothing, and nothing possessed him. The merchant, though understanding the words, still struggled with the concept. How could a man survive without holding on to something? Ryokan noticed the struggle in Kenji's eyes. He stood up and began to walk around his small hut. He picked up the expensive tea Kenji had brought and poured it out onto the thirsty soil outside the door. He picked up the silk and covered a small, struggling patch of vegetables with it to keep them warm during the coming night. He gave the money to a passing farmer on his way back to the village, asking him to share it with anyone who might need a little extra fuel for their hearth. The master, in a matter of minutes, had completely and peacefully dissolved the entire fortune Kenji had brought him. He was performing the deepest kind of charity, not merely giving away surplus, but giving away the very idea of ownership. Ryokan turned back to the merchant, his hands empty, his face glowing with a deep, silent joy. "Do you see, Kenji? The fear has nowhere to land. I have nothing that can be stolen, nothing that can be broken, nothing that requires guarding. The anxiety is simply the shadow cast by your clinging hands." This teaching is about non-attachment, the profound truth known as upadana in Buddhist thought. Attachment is not merely owning things, it is the mental and emotional grip we place on them. We become attached to our roles, our reputations, our relationships, our opinions, and even our familiar patterns of sadness or worry. We treat these fleeting circumstances as if they were solid, permanent parts of ourselves. The bottomless bowl teaches us that everything is fundamentally empty of permanent, self-sufficient existence. Everything is a temporary arrangement, borrowed from the universe and soon to be returned. The practice of non-attachment is the practice of seeing everything, your body, your achievements, your feelings tonight, as a temporary gift, held gently. When you hold something gently, you can appreciate its beauty without the torment of anticipating its loss. When you cling tightly, things you are still clutching. Let go of the attachment to the day's successes or failures. They are already dissolving into the past. Let go of the attachment to the feeling of your body being a certain way. Too tired, too restless. Just allow the body to be in its temporary state. Let go of the attachment to the thoughts that keep spinning. They are not solid truths. They are just passing mental weather. Imagine your mind as Ryokan's bowl, perfectly available for the nourishment of life, but completely empty of the need to hoard or cling. Let everything flow in, nourish you for a moment, and then flow out again, leaving the bowl clear and serene. Relax your hands. Relax your jaw. Relax the muscles around your eyes. These are the physical signs of clinging. Open your internal palm and allow everything to drop away. You have nothing to lose tonight, and in that deep, empty surrender, you gain the peace of the master. Let this freedom be the soft cushion that welcomes you into the quietest, most restorative sleep. Part 6. Washing your bowl. In the quiet, methodical world of the Zen monastery, every task is a teaching, every action a mirror reflecting the state of the mind. There is a famous, short exchange, a koan of the mundane, that reveals the profound depth hidden within the simplest chore. A new monk arrived at the great monastery of Nansen. The air was thick with the scent of burning incense and old wood. He was a bright, eager young man, full of ambition and intellectual fervor, convinced that the path to enlightenment was paved with deep philosophical study, rigorous asceticism, and brilliant spiritual breakthroughs. He bowed before Master Nansen, ready to prove his worth and receive his first great philosophical teaching. "Master," the young monk asked, his voice filled with reverence and expectation, "I am here to learn the way, the path to liberation. What is the fundamental essence of the Dharma? What is the secret teaching that will shatter the illusion of self and lead me to final awakening?" He expected a profound, cryptic answer, a lesson on emptiness, shunyata, or the nature of consciousness, or perhaps a young seeker standing alone with the complete, perfect teaching ringing in his ears. The monk, whose name was Joshu, was utterly stunned. He was left with the simple, unavoidable reality of his dirty bowl. Wash your bowl? Was this the great teaching? Where was the transcendent philosophy? Where was the secret wisdom? But as he walked toward the washing station, the truth began to dawn. Master Nansen had not dismissed the question. He had answered it with absolute precision. The monk realized that when he had been eating, he had not truly been eating. He had been planning his question to the master. He had been judging his own performance during morning zazen. He had been thinking about his future in the monastery. The food was merely a means to an end, a distraction from his main purpose. He realized that his entire life was lived in this same fragmented way. When he sat in meditation, he was thinking about walking. When he walked, he was thinking about the laundry. He was perpetually searching for the next thing, the bigger revelation, the more important task. He was always one step removed from his own life, chasing a future concept of awakening. Nansen's command was a precise surgical tool designed to cut through that perpetual seeking. Wash your bowl means 1. Be present. The greatest secret of the Dharma is not found in an ancient scroll or a hidden cave. It is found in the physical reality of the bowl in your hands. If you are washing the bowl, then just wash the bowl. Do not wash the bowl while thinking of enlightenment. Do not wash the bowl while planning tomorrow's tasks. When the soap is in your hand, smell the soap. When the water runs over the ceramic, feel the warmth of the water. When you wipe the edge clean, see the clean edge. The path to the way is the single-pointed, undivided attention given completely to the task at hand. This is the ordinary mind, is the way. 2. Complete the cycle. Life is a continuous series of cycles, eating and hunger, working and rest, speaking and silence. We rarely complete these cycles cleanly. We rush from one task to the next, leaving a trail of unfinished mental business behind us. The dirty bowl represents this unfinished business. If you leaping to another plane of existence, it is found by plunging fully into this one. Enlightenment is simply washing your bowl perfectly. This teaching is an antidote to the modern condition, where we are often rewarded for multitasking and constantly seeking efficiency. Zen reminds us that the only true efficiency is to be 100% here, now. Imagine if you lived your life by this single principle. If you are listening to this, then just listen. Let the words be the only reality. Let your body be the only physical sensation. If you are breathing, then just breathe. As you prepare to sleep, your mind might present you with a full sink of metaphorical dirty bowls. The unfinished conversations, the unresolved worries, the mental clutter of the day. Do not fight them. Do not try to solve them. Instead, take the advice of the master and apply it to your current reality. Wash your bowl. Acknowledge the thought. Ah, this is the unfinished argument. Give it 1 second of clean attention. I see you, thought. Release it completely. It is washed. It is done for the night. Do not carry the dirty residue of the day into the clean rest of the night. Let your mind become as spotless, as clear, and as completely empty as a freshly washed Zen bowl. Let the weight of the day's seeking drop away. There is nowhere else to go. There is nothing else to do. There is no greater wisdom than the simple reality of this moment. Just breathe. Just rest. Just wash your bowl. Part 7. The Water and the Moon. There is an old, quiet teaching that reminds us that the mind is like a vessel of water, and the truth of the universe is like the moon. On a night of perfect stillness, high above the silent valley, the great Zen master Dogen walked along the edge of a still, dark lake. The surface of the water was like polished obsidian, so calm that it reflected the vast, brilliant moon in the sky with absolute crystalline accuracy. The reflection was perfect, complete, and utterly beautiful. Dogen's student, a young monk named Soto, walked behind him. Soto was an ardent seeker, but his mind was constantly restless. Possessions is the reflection, the monk explained confidently. It is the illusion, or Maya, and the true moon, the one far above us, untouched and eternal, is the ultimate truth, the Dharma. Therefore, Soto concluded, our practice must be to turn away from the world of illusion, to stop looking at the water, and to fix our gaze only upon the distant true moon of reality. We must escape the reflection to find the truth. Dogen remained silent for a long time. The only sound was the soft sigh of the night wind moving through the tall reeds near the shore. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the gentle weight of profound correction. Soto, you are still clinging to duality. You have created two worlds, one of illusion, the reflection, and one of truth, the real moon. You are trying to use one hand to push away the water so the other hand can grasp the sky. The master turned his gaze to the silent student. The deepest truth of Zen is this: the moon does not need to be separated from its reflection. He continued, his words unfolding like a quiet scroll. The reflection is not an untrue moon. It is the moon expressing itself as water. The moon, the whole and perfect truth, enters the water without condition. It does not wait for a clean or still lake. When the water is troubled, the moon reflects itself as fragments. When the water is muddy, the moon reflects itself as a dull glow. When the water is still, the moon reflects itself as a perfect, whole orb. The point, Soto, is that the moon never leaves the sky, and the truth never leaves the present moment, no matter how muddy or fragmented the reflection may be. The master then delivered the core of the teaching. Your mind, Soto, is the water. The moon is your true nature, the Buddha nature that is whole, perfect, and unmoving. You are searching for the true moon far away in some spiritual sky, rejecting the water that is your actual life. When you believe your thoughts, your worries, and your emotional turbulence are the problem, you are looking at the muddy, fragmented water and trying to force it to be clear by willpower alone. That become clear through effort. It becomes clear through non-action and acceptance. When you cease the frantic activity of thinking and judging, the water of the mind naturally returns to its still state. And when the water becomes still, the original, perfect reflection, your own unmoving peace, will appear. The teaching of the water and the moon is one of profound acceptance. The moon is always there. Your true nature is never lost. It is not something you earn or achieve. It is your inherent, original state, untouchable by external events. The reflection is not the problem. The thoughts and feelings of the world are simply the moon interacting with the medium of your life. They are temporary expressions, not permanent realities. Stillness is non-interference. You do not need a new technique or a new philosophy. You only need to stop interfering with the water. As you lie here now, let your entire being sink into this acceptance. Do not try to find a perfect thought. Do not try to achieve perfect stillness. Just let go of the need to control the surface of the water. Let the thoughts rise and fall like small ripples, and let them dissolve naturally. The deep clarity you seek is not waiting in the sky. It is waiting in the depths of your own stillness. Let the light of the true moon shine through your restful acceptance and lead you into the deepest quiet of the night. You are perfect, whole, and complete, just as you are, right now, in the stillness. Part 8. The Empty Boat. One of the most profound and simplest teachings in Zen addresses the origin of anger and conflict. It is called the empty boat. Imagine a fisherman, a stern and serious man, who rises before dawn every day to cast his nets into the wide, misty river. This man is highly organized, punctual, and believes deeply that efficiency and order are the highest virtues. He takes pride in his solitary work, valuing the quiet precision of his routine. One morning, the fog on the river is unusually thick, swallowing the light and silencing all sound. The fisherman is a fog. There is no captain, no crew, no person to confront, to blame, or to lecture. The object of his intense, boiling rage simply does not exist. The moment he realizes the boat is empty, the fisherman's fury vanishes entirely. The knot of tension in his chest loosens, his clenched fists relax. There is nowhere for the anger to go. He cannot scream at the mist. He cannot demand an apology from a piece of unpiloted wood. He quietly stabilizes his own boat, gathers his gear, and, with a newfound sense of peace, continues on his way. The incident, which moments before was a catalyst for intense suffering, is immediately forgotten. This simple, powerful image is the core teaching of the non-self, or anatta. It is the realization that your conflict requires two people, and that one of those people is often an illusion. We suffer when we believe that the conflict is intentional, personal, and aimed directly at us. When we are criticized, when plans go awry, when someone is unkind, we immediately project an intention onto the event. We tell ourselves a story. They meant to hurt me. The universe is against me. This was done out of malice. This projection of a malicious or careless self in the other boat is what creates the anger and the pain. We are furious not at the action, but at the story of intention we create around the action. The moment we realize the other boat is empty, the moment we realize that the other person's actions are almost always driven by their own internal fog, their own pain, their own lack of mooring, the anger dissolves. The person who criticizes you is acting out of their own fear. The person who cuts you off in traffic is late and distracted. The careless word that wounded you came from someone who is currently experiencing their own internal storm. Their boat is empty. There is no malice, only unintentional drift. If the boat has no intention, how can you be angry? The action is simply a fact of the universe, a loose boat hitting a moored one. It is a neutral event. Your suffering arises entirely from the human need to locate a self, an ego, to blame for the event. Zen masters ask us to live as if every boat is empty. This does not mean we tolerate abuse or as entirely empty. Imagine their action was simply a piece of drift, unguided by any malicious intent toward you. They were simply a loose boat on the river of life. Take a deep breath and let the projection of an intentional self dissolve. If there is no malicious driver, there is nothing personal in the impact. There is simply the gentle, factual reality of the water moving. Let your body relax, knowing you no longer need to brace for a fight that never truly existed. Rest in the vast, open, and empty space that is free from personal offense. Let the quiet realization of non-self be the anchor that holds you firm, allowing you to drift peacefully into the deepest, most undisturbed sleep. You are safe. The conflict has no one to fight. Beyond 1,000 hollow words. The Zen tradition places ultimate value not on voluminous doctrine or complex ritual, but on the power of a single, immediate gesture or a moment of profound silence. The Buddha himself is quoted in the Dhammapada with a timeless teaching that underscores this simplicity. Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. But often, even that single word is too much. The greatest transmission of wisdom occurs beyond the limits of language, in the vast, unnameable space where true understanding resides. In a quiet village far from the bustle of the capital, there lived a teacher named Bankei. He was celebrated not for the complexity of his sermons, but for his deep, living connection to the unborn. His term for the fundamental, uncreated, and perfect nature of the mind. He drew enormous crowds, and many scholars came to challenge his simple, yet unshakable truth. One day, a famous, well-traveled academic, known for his relentless debating skills, arrived at Bankei's retreat. The scholar, whose mind was a fortress built of philosophical distinctions and theological concepts, intended to expose what he believed was the master's intellectual weakness. The scholar sat before Bankei, surrounded by hundreds of silent students, and began a long of their own breathing, the small noises of their bodies, and the distant sound of the wind outside. After a long minute, Bankei finally spoke, his voice low, steady, and entirely free of aggression. "Sir," he said to the scholar, "I have listened to your 1,000 words. They were full of passion and conviction. But I noticed something. As you were speaking, your voice began to grow hoarse, and you cleared your throat twice." The scholar looked confused. "Yes, master, that is natural when speaking for so long." "When you cleared your throat the first time," Bankei continued, gently, "did the sound come from your arguments about the nature of existence? Did it come from your memory of the ancient texts? Or did it simply come from the place we call your throat, your physical being?" "It came from my throat, of course," the scholar muttered. "And when you cleared it the second time," Bankei asked, "was that sound made with intention to refute my teaching? Or was it merely the result of the body's simple need for moisture?" "It was the body's need, master." Bankei leaned forward slightly, his eyes shining with the simple, undivided truth. There, in the single, immediate sound of the throat being cleared, a sound created without philosophical intention, without memory, without malice, there is the complete truth of the unborn. It is closer than your tongue, more immediate than your thought, and requires no single word of explanation. The 1,000 words you spoke were hollow because they all arose from the secondary activity of the mind, trying to divide and grasp reality. They created noise and confusion, but no peace. Yet, that small, natural sound of clearing the throat, that was the simple, perfect truth of the present moment, requiring no effort and bringing with it an undeniable reality. The scholar, confronted not with an argument, but with the simple, inescapable fact of his own immediate experience, sat speechless. He realized that all his magnificent words had been a distraction from the clear, silent reality that was right there. Is not spoken with the mouth. It is silence. The silence is not empty. It is full of the simple, immediate truth of your being. It is the feeling of the blanket on your skin. It is the low, steady rhythm of your heartbeat. It is the soft darkness behind your closed eyes. These physical, unarguable realities are the voice of the unborn, the truth that requires no defense. As you lie here now, let the 1,000 hollow words of the day, the emails, the headlines, the conversations, the worried internal monologues, all fade into the background. Turn your attention to the simplest, most immediate sound of your own reality, the slow, deep movement of your breath. That breath requires no philosophy. It has no argument. It is simply the immediate, perfect presence of life itself. Rest in that simplicity. Rest in the quiet wisdom of the body. Let go of the need for any word at all, and allow the profound, calming sound of your own pure being to carry you completely into sleep. The final gate, returning to beginnings. We have traveled a great distance tonight, not across mountains or rivers, but across the vast and subtle landscape of the mind. We have walked the path of the wobbly brick, accepting imperfection as the very nature of existence. We have encountered the deep, unconditional love of the Master who embodied the three great matters: to live well, to love well, and to let go completely. We have learned to cultivate the precious space between stimulus and response, choosing peace over reaction. We searched for the sound of one hand, dissolving the illusion of duality and resting in the profound unity of the unborn. We learned to hold life gently, like the bottomless bowl, free from the anxiety of clinging. We found that the highest wisdom is discovered in the simple act of washing your bowl, bringing undivided attention to the mundane. And finally, we realized that the source of our conflict is the empty boat, allowing us to release our anger and rest in the truth of non-self. Now, a small favor to ask of you. Would you go outside and fetch me a cup of water from the stream? The student, slightly annoyed by the trivial request after 20 years of profound spiritual work, but dutiful, went to the stream. He lowered the cup into the cold flowing water. He brought the cup back and presented it to the Master. The Master took the cup and slowly, deliberately, poured the clear water back out onto the earth. Now, the Master asked, "Tell me, where is the perfect stillness you achieved?" The student hesitated. He realized that his stillness had been contained entirely within the empty cup of his own effort. The moment the world, the simple fact of fetching water, was introduced, his perfect quiet was lost. His stillness was dependent on the absence of everything. The Master, seeing the realization dawn in the student's eyes, explained softly, "Original mind is not an empty cup that must be guarded from the water of the world. Original mind is the flowing stream itself. It is the clarity that allows the water to carry the reflection of the sky without being changed by it. It is the life that moves without clinging to the stillness." The true final gate is the realization that you do not have to cling to the stillness you have found tonight. You do not have to fight to keep your mind empty. That kind of effort only stirs the water once more. The final act of profound release is to let go of the effort to let go. Allow yourself to return to the simple, fundamental reality of this moment, which is already perfect, already complete, and already quiet. Your body is here, resting. Your breath is moving naturally. The deep, quiet rhythm of life continues without your effort. Let the final anxieties, the last small wobbly bricks, drift through the flow of your stream. Do not judge them. Do not grab them. Just allow the stream to carry them away, back into the vast, clear ocean of sleep. This is the ultimate, non-dual rest. You are not the body trying to sleep, and you are not the mind fighting to be quiet. You are the deep, compassionate awareness that is observing both, the stream itself. Rest now, completely and deeply, in the certainty